salty Gulf Coast to the rolling high plains, to the piney woods in the east. All across our dear Texas, folks need good food to eat. Our farmers and ranchers are heroes. They've always made Texas great. Texas agriculture matters. It's the heart of the Lone Star State. Oh, Texas got it all, y'all.
Well, howdy, neighbors. I'm your Texas Agriculture Commissioner, Sid Miller. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Texas Agriculture Matters right here on RFD-TV. Hey, today we're going to talk about a topic that often gets overlooked, especially in the agriculture industry, and that's mental health. Often underappreciated, these are the hands that provide the food on our table and the clothes on our back. With agriculture being the backbone of our great state, the pressure that farmers and ranchers carry is overwhelming, to say the least. Farming, unfortunately, now holds the highest rate of suicide, which has surpassed our nation's veterans. That's right. If rural mental health awareness is swept under the rug, this silent epidemic will only get worse. That's why I work to develop the Agri-Stress Helpline. Now, this is specific for agriculture workers. We know best that the struggles and stresses of agriculture are unique and require a specialized intentional care. We want to make sure that every fisherman, rancher, forester, logger, and farmer has access to mental health. Now, we offer this in 160 different languages. The Agri-Stress Helpline is made up of specialists who are trained and certified in farmer response. They have over 300 hours of crisis training, support, and de-escalation training. Every call is answered within 30 seconds, and everyone is offered a 24-hour follow-up call. We're leaving no one behind. Now let's join Tammy Arnder as she heads to Nashville, Tennessee to visit with Texas country music artist and rancher, Jenna Paulette. Rural mental health awareness is just another way Texas agriculture matters.
You got the cattle, you put 1,000,000 miles on that saddle.
Jenna Paulette is a hat act, but it's not an act. She was raised on a ranch at the Texas-Oklahoma border.
My sister and I took a big interest in it. We became kind of essential to our operation in a way. And I'm so grateful that there was no discrimination because I was a girl. And they just invited us to do everything that they did and taught us along the way.
This Lewisville, Texas native grew up moving cattle on the family's cow-calf operation. And it was riding on the back of a horse or a four-wheeler to those four-legged animals that she realized she had a gift.
Like a Cheyenne wind, the green eyes with a whiskey grin.
I guess for me, music has always been about keeping one foot on the ranch and one foot in the music industry. And when I think about what I want my music videos, whether it's a lyric video or a big time music video where we go and spend a little bit of money, I always want it to mean something, because I think it's one thing to make art and make something pretty, but if it doesn't actually affect people's lives, what's the point?
I had no doubt that you were the real deal.
So much of her music has a message, and You Ain't No Cowboy goes right to the heart of the struggle that those who live in rural America deal with every day.
You Ain't No Cowboy, we featured the love of my life and part of his story of getting sober, and kind of broadened it as well to represent ranchers on the whole and the many stresses that ranchers endure on a yearly and daily basis.
You put 1,000,000 miles on that saddle.
And if they can see somebody like that be willing to be that vulnerable and give them a lifeline in a way, then I think that there's hopefully more people that will do the same thing, whether they struggle, they're struggling financially on their operation, or they're struggling with drugs and alcohol, or just depression, mental illness, whatever it is, that they can watch that and think to themselves, okay, like if he could take a step in the right direction and be successful for 5 years, then I can take one step at a time and put one boot in front of the other and do it myself as well.
Statistics show that farmers and ranchers and residents of rural America are more susceptible to depression and suicidal thoughts. There are so many things that can weigh heavy on a farmer's mind, and many of them out of their control.
And it weighs heavy because you're trying to carry on a legacy, and I think we all carry it heavier because we want to pass down ranching to future generations and keep ranching in the American family, because I believe that we are the ones that care about this land more than anybody, because we've got, generations of blood, sweat, and tears in it. So yeah, it's a heavy thing, and when you can't control the aspects of what make you successful, it can be a really scary thing sometimes.
Paulette has also partnered with the Texas Department of Agriculture. She wants to reach as many people as possible to let them know there is help. They are not alone.
We reached out to Texas Ag Department and asked if they wanted to be a part of getting this message out further than we could on our own. And they saw the video, and it's a very real video. It's raw, and we wanted it that way because we didn't want people who really were struggling with everything that has to do with mental health and addiction to look at that video and not be able to see themselves in it, however hard that was, and that they just have seen themselves in a very real way in a video like that, and they don't feel alone anymore.
I'm Tammy Arender for Texas Agriculture Matters.
Thank you, Tammy. Hey, today it's my pleasure to have Southwest Ag Center content strategist Shelby Lambert with us. Thank you, Shelby, for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Start out, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Texas, background in psychology and public health. Started as a grad assistant for the Southwest Ag Center. I've stayed along for the last 5 years and enjoyed every minute of it.
So people are kind of surprised that, we have mental health struggles in rural parts of the country. Tell us why that is.
Sure. Well, a big part of that is isolation. A lot of farmers and ranchers live secluded in the country or in the rural communities. So access to care, access to resources is a big problem in that area.
Well, you're saying we're a little bit of an introvert, right?
We are.
We don't socialize a lot. We stay out on the farm, maybe on a tractor 12 or 14 hours a day, or working cattle or fixing fence. And we're kind of a proud bunch, actually. We're self-reliant, so we don't interact a lot. We certainly don't like to ask others for help or charity, right?
That's true.
So should mental health be addressed differently in rural areas than it would be in an urban setting?
Well, I just think it's important to know that because we are secluded, it's important to remember that access to care is limited. We don't always have rural broadband in those areas, so access to internet resources is limited. So that's why we've put together this AgriStress helpline.
So what are some symptoms, or how would you know that someone is struggling, that might need help, some mental health help?
Sure.
What do we look for?
Well, some good signs to look for that even a family member could see would be pulling away from social activities, pulling away from things they'd usually be involved in. Maybe they go and get coffee with friends in the morning before starting their morning chores. Maybe they're selling off possessions, and that's not usual of them. So looking for those unusual signs and symptoms that you wouldn't typically recognize in them is a good start.
People don't realize, but this is the number one occupation for suicides. And I said, well, that's shocking. I thought farmers had a happy, wonderful life. Well, what I tell them, I said, look, you're a 7th or 8th generation farmer. You have inherited the family legacy. You don't own the land anymore. The land owns you. It's part of you. You just missed 3 crops. The bank's calling all your notes. You're going to be the one that loses the family legacy. That's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, right? That's where a lot of it comes from.
Definitely. There's so much pressure and so many things out of their control, whether it's the weather, the market prices, anything that's going on financially. And so with so much at stake, there is a lot of pressure and a lot of stress on those families.
I realize this, and I wanted to address it. So we came up with, and I don't like to use the word suicide. So we call it the Agri-Stress Helpline.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about it and how it works.
Sure. Well, it's really unique because it's the only helpline that's been designed for ag families. So it's designed in a way to be a crisis line first, but a resource line second. So if they are struggling and going through a hard time, they can call. If they're just looking for hay in the area, if they're looking for financial resources, they can call it as well for that.
You know, and they pick it up, and they would know, they're actually talking to people that have had over 300 hours training about rural agriculture, mental health. You call the 988 suicide hotline, you may get somebody in New York or India, and they don't know what resources are available. So you call this the Agri-Stress Helpline, and they may say, did you know the USDA had a low-interest loan program, an emergency loan program, or the Texas Department of Agriculture has the STAR program, which help, replace your barn and your fences and all the stuff's destroyed by the fire or the drought or the tornado. So it's a very specialized, geared right to our rural folks. Hey, folks, we got to take a break, but we'll be back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, folks, to Texas Agriculture Matters. I'm your host, Texas Agriculture Commissioner Sid Miller. Now, let's continue our talk with Shelby Lambert. What does the Southwest Ag Center do to promote mental health and educate people about mental health?
Sure, there's a lot of things that we do. One is promoting the Agri-Stress Helpline. We have a few different events lined up this summer to provide mental health training, including QPR, suicide prevention and awareness for communities, including adults and youth. And then a few other things we've done is create a testimonial video highlighting one farmer's story with suicide and how that's impacted his life.
Now, we've had this helpline up and running for a little while, a little over a year. So have we got any success stories? Can you share us maybe some things that have happened how we've helped people?
Sure. Well, I would say not directly from the line, but we hear all the time about how our work is important. We have farmers and their families come to us and say, I'm glad someone's finally talking about this, and I'm glad we have someone who's doing something to help.
There's got to be some ways that people can contribute to farmers' mental health. Do you have any suggestions on that?
I think one would be taking the time to find someone you can talk with. If you don't feel comfortable going to professional, or if you don't have those resources, find a friend, find a pastor, find a family member who you can go to and invest in and build a relationship with.
Well, one of the hardest things about this Agri-Stress Helpline is getting the word out. And then once they get the word, we already talked about how farmers are such a proud, independent breed. They don't, I'm tough, I'll just work my way through it. We found that instead of targeting directly to the farmer, we target the children and the grandkids. What guy's going to say, Pawpaw, would you sit down with me and call this number? Who's going to tell their grandkid no, right? So there's several different approaches. How do you suggest we get the word out about this program, the Agri-Stress Helpline?
And that's a great point. Another thing we do is we talk with the spouses. So we go to a lot of women in agriculture conferences. We had one last year here in Fort Worth. And we tell the spouses about the line. They're more inclined to be willing to call or tell their spouse about it. We do a lot of trainings with youth so that they are aware and they can go to their family members and provide that resource as an option.
I'm glad you bring that up because we've been working real close with a organization called Ag Women Connect. Mm-hmm. And they are really promoting our Agri-Stress Helpline. And it's an all-women's group. It's an all-agriculture group. What a perfect way. I'm glad you brought that up. So through the wives, sisters, the grandchildren, the children, the whole family needs to pitch in because it's all a unit, right?
Correct. And they're the ones who see those signs and symptoms on a daily basis. They're the ones who are going to spot that warning sign that would be so close or so good to catch that last minute. And so we like to invest in them and remind them that they're so integral to that farm and that relationship.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing this subject up. It's not an easy subject to talk about, but it's a much needed subject. We've got this agri-stress helpline. I'm proud that you're getting the word out there and helping us promote this. My last question for you today is, why does Texas agriculture matter?
I believe in keeping ag local. Whether we're getting our food or fiber from here, it supports local farmers and families.
Shelby, thank you very much. You've been very informative.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Hey, folks, we're going to take a look at another great Go Texan partner. Stay tuned. For over 20 years, the Texas Department of Agriculture's Go Texan program has helped promote products made right here in the Lone Star State. From boots to salsa, Go Texan members make the best stuff on earth. Now, friends, let's take a look at one of these fine Texas businesses and why they are Go Texan proud.
Go Texan every day.
The mozzarella company started 40 years ago when Paula Lambert wanted to sell mozzarella cheese because they didn't have the same type of mozzarella in the United States like the one in Italy. She learned how to make it in Italy with a guy called Giovanni Marchetti. He was the expert in mozzarella in those days. He brought him here. He taught Paula how to make the mozzarella, and since then, we make handmade mozzarella, and I think it's one of the best. The reason we make mozzarella in this area, it's because back in 1982, this area wasn't what it is today. It was kind of deserted. There were not many businesses, and it was a perfect spot to start a company here. We didn't know it was going to last that long, so that's where in this area. The different products we make here, we started with one product, the mozzarella. Then one of our first customers was the mansion in Turtle Creek. They loved the cheese. They were using different kinds of cheese. They were looking for actual mozzarella. When Paula showed up there with the mozzarella, they loved it. They start buying it, and after a couple of months, they say, "Hey, do you have something else?" And Paula came out with the mozzarella rolls. It's just like a jelly roll filled with different things like sun-dried tomato with the basil pesto, prosciutto, and they loved that. So Paula started producing that, and of course, people start asking for different kinds of cheese. So with the help of chefs like Stephen Piles, Dean Faring, Paula started making all these new kinds of cheese. Now we make probably around 50, 60 different kinds of cheese. We don't make them every day, all of them. We make like 5, 6 different ones every day. It depends on the orders and the customers. We have cheese making class on Saturdays. It's every other Saturday. We have two classes, one at noon and one at 3 p.m. They all pack. So if somebody wants to have a class, they need to call like a couple months ahead because they're always full. And it's a fun class. It's 2 hours. You make like 5 different kinds of cheese. The day-to-day operation here is girls get here at 1:30 in the morning. They start pasteurizing the milk. Probably around 5 o'clock in the morning, they start adding the cultures. They added the rennet, and we get the mozzarella ready around 10 o'clock. We get the curds and we get the whey. The curds, we put them on the table. The girls start chopping it, and then after they chop the curds, we add the water, the hot water, and it turns into mozzarella. With the whey, we make ricotta. We don't get rid of it. We make ricotta. We get everything from local farms, local milks. We get the milk from Dairy Farmers of America. We get all our products from the States. We became a Go Texans member even before I owned the company. That was done by the previous owner, Paula Lambert. She decided to do that. And that's where we're in right now. And we love to be there. It makes us proud to be a Texas product. And that's why we try to buy everything from Texas. I'm Mauricio Travesi with the Mozzarella Company, and we Go Texan proud.
Well, neighbors, thank you for joining us for another episode of Texas Agriculture Matters. Hey, I hope you feel a little more equipped after today's episode on rural mental health awareness. Now, together, walking hand in hand, we can put an end to mental health struggles in rural Texas. Now, we must acknowledge that it exists and direct our community to the resources and keep each other accountable in learning how to support others and ourselves. Now, if you or anyone you know needs help, please call the AgriStress Helpline. It's on your screen, 833-897-2474. And as always, I'd like to close by saying thanks to every Texas farmer and rancher who works from sunrise to sunset to help keep our rural heritage alive. Now finally, here's today's cowboy logic. Hey, don't let the people that aren't going anywhere take you with them. Thank you and God bless. And remember, friends, Texas agriculture matters.
From the salty Gulf Coast to the rolling high plains, to the piney woods in the east, all across our dear Texas, folks need good food to eat. Our farmers and ranchers are heroes. They've always made Texas great. Texas agriculture matters. It's the heart of the Lone Star State.
Oh, Texas got it all.